In this video, we will show the technique for determining the residual efficacy of an insecticide on a sprayed surface. Cone wall bioassays are used to test residual efficacy of insecticides and to evaluate the quality of residual spraying operations. Residual effectiveness of insecticides on treated surfaces is determined by checking the mortality of the target mosquito vector exposed to the sprayed surface at intervals of weeks or months after the spraying. There are a few general considerations to be aware of before starting. These include usually fully susceptible mosquitoes reared in an insectary are used in the evaluations. Where this does not exist, then it may be necessary to use field-caught mosquitoes for the test, although it is less than desirable. In this case, it is important to determine that the field-caught mosquitoes are fully susceptible before conducting the test. To do this, follow the standardized protocol for susceptibility evaluations, which is to raise field-caught larvae to adults. To learn more about this, watch the video about susceptibility testing, where a field-caught mosquito colony is determined to be fully susceptible, then members of the same sample colony raised in the insectary may be used. Where test numbers are not enough, the insectary colony could be raised through the next generation to increase the number of mosquitoes available for the test. When mosquitoes are raised from larvae, it is possible to control their physiological state. Use non-blood fed females 2 to 5 days post-emergence. The temperature at which insecticide exposure occurs, ideally 27 degrees plus or minus 2 degrees centigrade. When handling mosquitoes and preparing the bioassays, remember to use a filter in the aspirator to avoid inhaling mosquitoes or insect fragments. Blow gently to expel the mosquitoes into the cones. If the mosquitoes are blown too hard, they can be damaged against the sides of the test cones, killing them before the insecticide has a chance to do so. In general, a bioassay kit typically contains the following equipment. Aspirators, or sucking tubes, are used for collecting mosquitoes. For this test, you will need 2 aspirators, one to transfer mosquitoes to control cones and another to transfer mosquitoes to exposed cones. A slight angle at the end of the aspirator will help in collecting mosquitoes from the edges of the cones or cups. Exposure cones are attached to the sprayed surface using tape or thumbtacks. Control cones are attached to insecticide-free surfaces. After the mosquitoes are exposed to the surface in the cones, they are transferred to covered containers. In order to determine efficacy of residual pesticide, select a wall surface similar to the main types of wall surfaces in the area. Select 3 households per location. Line the edges of plastic cones with adhesive sponge tape. For each selected surface, select 3 points at different heights: low, medium, and high, and attach each of the cones to the points using tape or thumbtacks. As a control, attach plastic cones to insecticide-free paper or a piece of untreated wood, something similar to the surface of the exposure cones. If you have enough mosquitoes, transfer 15 to 20 mosquitoes into each cone and put a piece of cotton wool in the opening of the cone. Remember to use one aspirator for the exposure cones and another for the control. After 30 minutes, carefully take out the mosquitoes from the cones and transfer them to separate labeled cups. Count the number of mosquitoes dead or knocked down at the end of the exposure period, but do not remove mosquitoes that appear dead, as some of them might later recover. Take note of the temperature and humidity and record them in the data collection form. Place a piece of cotton wool damp with a 10% sugar solution on top of each cup. Put the cups in an insulated box and cover with a damp towel. Cover the box and protect it from ants, placing it on an elevated surface. The cups with the control mosquitoes should be kept separate from exposure cups. After 24 hours, count the number of mosquitoes dead and calculate percent mortality in both the exposure and control. If necessary, repeat the experiment on different wall surfaces. In each experiment, use the same number of mosquitoes for exposure and control. The rates of mortality are calculated as follows. Control mortality, C, equals the number of dead mosquitoes in the control cone divided by the total number of mosquitoes applied to the control cone, multiplied by 100. Exposure mortality, E, equals the number of dead mosquitoes divided by the total number of mosquitoes applied to the exposure cones, multiplied by 100. If control mortality is between 5% and 20%, the exposure mortality should be corrected by using Abbott's formula, where corrected exposure mortality equals E minus C divided by 100 minus C multiplied by 100. When you have corrected for mortality, record the corrected mortality rates in the data collection form. If control mortality is greater than 20%, the experiment should be discarded. To interpret the results of the cone wall bioassay correctly, it is important to keep in mind the following considerations. For indoor residual spraying, the length of time between the spraying and the cone test must be known. The residual efficacy of insecticide diminishes over time. Therefore, the cone assay must be done regularly, beginning 1 week after spraying and then done monthly. If the indoor spraying is done correctly, the cone assay mortality rate in the first week should be 100%, or close to that figure. Over time, the mortality rate will decrease. When the mortality rate falls below 80%, it is generally considered that it is then time to reapply the insecticide. The World Health Organization provides a list of recommended insecticide guidelines on the length of time pesticides will last on the wall. However, monthly cone tests should be done locally to confirm when the mortality rate falls below 80%. For each surface type tested, determine the average length of residual efficacy in that specific area or location. Since periodic sampling might be necessary to monitor the efficacy of residual spraying, draw a sketch map showing the location of households sampled. If a GPS unit is available, take the geographic coordinates from where you collected your sample, remembering to record the latitude and longitude in decimal degrees. The results obtained should be shared with the Ministry of Health or the National Vector Control Program for use in decision-making. As you collect, you should give each house a number. Against this number, record the location, type of surface sampled, number of cones used, knockdown rate, mortality rate, and date. You have now seen an overview of cone assays for testing the efficacy of insecticides on wall surfaces. As with any methodology, practice is needed to improve technique and develop a reliable collection methodology. For more information on integrated vector management or training materials, please visit our website.